She wore white. They raised glasses. And they smiled, knowing I was erased from her wedding. But what they didn't know? I had the proof that would tear their perfect fairy tale apart. I wasn't just the forgotten sibling. I was the real heir. And I walked in ready to shatter everything they stole. This is the day their legacy collapsed. They didn't scream. They didn't send threats or stage some big dramatic scene. They just cut me out. Clean and quiet. Like I was a stain they could erase with one swipe of a pen. No invite. No phone call. Not even a text. I found out about my sister's wedding the way strangers do, through filtered photos on someone else's feed. White vineyard chairs, gold-trimmed menu cards, and Caroline, smiling like the crown jewel, standing next to the man I once pulled from a bar fight to protect her. She looked like a princess, and I looked like a ghost. Not forgotten. Deleted. Every caption was a knife. All the people who matter. Our forever family. But my name wasn't there. No seat saved, no mention made. It was a message dressed as silence, and I heard it loud and clear. They wanted me gone, not just physically, but from the record. The problem is, I'm not built to disappear. I've spent years in combat zones, trained to survive where silence gets you killed. I know what it means when people pretend you're not there. It's never about absence. It's about power. So I didn't lash out. I didn't call. I didn't beg for an explanation. Instead, I observed, watched from the outside, took note of every detail they so carefully curated, and while they toasted champagne and posed under string lights, I built something stronger than an apology: leverage. Caroline inherited the image. I inherited the strategy. Because what they didn't know was that the will they used to lock me out, it wasn't the last one my father signed. And I had proof. They thought they buried the truth. But I don't need a seat at their table to burn the whole damn room down. I don't need their love. I need the truth to stand. And it will. Not because I'm loud, but because I'm precise. They made one mistake when they tried to erase me. They left me alive. Watch what happens when I walk into that wedding. Not with tears, but with documents that turn the perfect day into a reckoning no one saw coming. She looked like the perfect bride on every front page they paid to be on. Lace that clung like purity, a smile trained for cameras, and a father's arm escorting her like she'd carried this family through its darkest hour. But she hadn't. I had. I had stood guard outside base hospitals while letters from home stopped coming. I had cleaned blood off my boots while she chose floral arrangements and handed out seating charts like medals. She was the golden daughter, groomed, adored, and fed the inheritance like it was hers by birthright. But what she didn't earn, she'd never keep. I remember standing just outside the garden where they hosted the wedding, boxed in by white tents and golden light. Someone handed me a glass of champagne, thinking I was part of the catering staff. I didn't correct them. I let the flute dangle loosely in my hand as I watched her glide down the aisle like royalty. Every guest rose. Except me. I didn't come to clap. I came to count the lies. One for each pearl in her necklace. One for each zero they drained from the trust I was supposed to share. My father had said, in a voice once tender, that war changed me, that maybe I wasn't stable enough to handle legacy, that my silence made people nervous, that being invisible was better than being inconvenient. So they rewrote the story. She became the survivor. I became the casualty. I stood behind a hedge and watched her toss a bouquet toward a crowd of hands desperate for luck. But luck doesn't hold up in court. Evidence does. And mine wasn't petals. It was paper. Signed, stamped, legal. I didn't come to steal her thunder. I came to reclaim what I bled for. What I protected when she didn't even know what the word sacrifice meant. And I knew, The moment I stepped forward, envelope in hand, that the performance would crack. Because the legacy she wore like a crown had a crack in its base, and I was that crack. Silent, unwelcome, unforgettable. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't plead. I just walked. Past the whispering guests. Past the frozen smiles. Toward the table where the family ledger sat, decorated with pink roses and deceit. Every step I took made them flinch like ghosts had entered. But I wasn't a ghost. I was the storm they'd tried to ignore. And as I laid that envelope down, right between her bouquet and the guest book, I watched her face pale in a way no makeup could mask. Her hand trembled as it hovered over it. But she didn't touch it, because deep down she already knew. That legacy was never hers. She'd borrowed it, dressed it up, performed in it, but it had always belonged to the one they buried with silence. Me. And now it was time to exhume the truth. They thought the documents were gone. They thought I'd burned out with the deployment. But the file I brought didn't just prove my claim, it proved how far they'd gone to erase me. And the one signature missing was hers. The violin strings drifted through the air, like perfume, delicate and artificial, as I stood just outside the grand oak doors of the cathedral. My heels sank slightly into the gravel, but I didn't shift my weight. I wanted the first thing they saw when those doors opened to be me standing tall, uninvited, unreadable. Inside, the wedding had already begun. Laughter floated through the stained glass windows. They were toasting her, the golden daughter, the one who wore white not because she was pure, but because they needed her to look untouchable. She was marrying into money, sealing the legacy they thought she deserved. What no one saw was the paper trail I held in my left hand. A manila envelope, thick, sealed, and deadly. It didn't shake. I didn't either. They thought erasing me from the family meant the lie would hold, that the world would forget my name if it wasn't stitched into the napkins or etched onto the guest list. But I never needed an invitation. I had blood and proof. My father's voice echoed in my memory, raspy and tired from chemo. You're the one I trust to protect what matters, not them. But he was too weak to fight the lawyers, and too kind to believe his other daughter would forge his name before he passed. I wasn't. I'd spent years in silence, collecting details, dates, transactions, whispers, watching them build this wedding on top of a grave they dug with lies. And now, she was walking down the aisle in a dress bought with inheritance money that wasn't hers, toward a future funded by theft. My fingers traced the edge of the envelope like a blade. I waited until the music swelled, until every eye was on her, and then I stepped inside. Heads turned. Some gasped. Others pretended not to recognize me. But her? She froze mid-step. Her smile cracked first. Then her grip on the bouquet tightened, like she thought the roses might shield her. The priest faltered. The room held its breath. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. I walked down the center aisle like it was a warpath, not a wedding. Then I handed the envelope to the judge seated 2 rows back. He wasn't just a guest. He was the executor. And what he read changed everything. Her groom lowered his champagne. Her mother's face drained of color. Her father, my uncle, stood but didn't speak. The silence in that moment was louder than any accusation. They built this day on a foundation of forgery and greed, and I had just placed a lit match at the base of it all. But I didn't stay to watch it burn. I turned and walked back up the aisle, the way I came, controlled, whole, and finally, seen. The only thing louder than that silence was the truth they could no longer ignore. The next morning, the papers hit every inbox in the estate law circuit. But what happened at the reading, that's where the empire truly collapsed. It didn't happen right away. That's the thing about truth. It doesn't explode like fireworks. It spreads like wildfire beneath the floorboards. At first, they smiled through it, posed for photos like nothing cracked beneath their heels. She went on with the ceremony. Toasts were forced. The cake was cut. But no one tasted it. Eyes flicked. Whispers rippled. Her groom never met her gaze again, and by the time they danced their first dance, I was already gone. But the evidence I left behind was moving faster than I ever could. That night, emails started leaking. A digital trail she thought she erased resurfaced, line by line, bank statements, a forged signature, and the final trust addendum my father recorded before he died, naming me sole heir and executor of the family estate. Her lawyer tried to argue duress, but his voice cracked by paragraph 3. The judge never even looked at him. The blow didn't land like a punch. It landed like gravity. Slow, heavy, irreversible. Within 72 hours, the wedding planner pulled her invoice. The groom's family initiated an internal review on the prenup, and the bank froze 4 of their accounts. Not because I screamed, not because I begged, but because truth, when timed right, doesn't need to be loud to shatter everything. My sister, the one they paraded as perfection, was reduced to silence in every room she used to command. Her phone stopped ringing, her bridesmaids backed out of the honeymoon. And the man she married? He stayed for the photo ops but moved out by week's end. She sent a letter, handwritten. No apology. Just a plea to fix it quietly. I burned it, unopened. Not out of anger, but because I don't negotiate with people who tried to erase me like I was a mistake they regretted. I don't fix what they broke. I replace it. And I build better. That's what they never understood. I didn't come to destroy their world. I came to reclaim mine. What they lost was borrowed. What I held was earned. And what happened at the reading of the will would make it undeniable. Not just to them, but to everyone who ever doubted if silence could win. I walked into that room alone, but I didn't leave that way. Because the final piece of my father's plan wasn't written on paper. It was sitting across the table, waiting for me to recognize it. They didn't hand me a legacy. They built a lie on top of it and hoped the silence would hold. But legacy isn't gifted like a bouquet at the end of a wedding. It's claimed. It's earned in the dark when no one claps, and I earned mine in the shadows they tried to bury me in. While she played Daughter of the Year, I was overseas building something harder than reputation. Discipline, loyalty, proof. They laughed behind polished doors, cutting my name from the documents and painting me unstable, unfit, irrelevant. But ink doesn't lie, and neither does a notarized original. I stepped into that reception like a ghost they swore would never return. The chandelier sparkled above them, expensive and blind, casting golden light on a family polished for show. She stood in white, radiant, curated, false. The crowd didn't see it yet. But I did. She was standing on a legacy that wasn't hers. I watched her laugh with guests who didn't know the real reason my name was erased. They didn't know she forged the signature. They didn't know the will was rewritten while I was still holding my father's hand, whispering promises while he forgot his own name. I didn't need to raise my voice or interrupt her toast. I waited until the room was full, the cameras were rolling, the fairy tale locked in place. And then I handed the truth to the coordinator with a calm so cold it cracked her voice as she tried to ask, "Are you—" I didn't answer. She didn't need one. The moment she opened that envelope and her eyes flicked to my face, the whole room shifted. The pianist missed a note. The groom looked up. And my sister? Her smile didn't just fade, it collapsed. 3 pages. That's all it took. 3 pages and the truth she thought would never resurface. It wasn't just a will. It was a correction, a reversal, a reckoning. The name on the trust was mine. always had been. And every guest in that room was about to witness the handoff of a legacy she never earned. She stepped forward, stuttering something about a mistake, a misunderstanding. But she knew. Deep down, she'd always known this day would come, that no matter how perfectly she played her role, she'd stolen something too big to keep. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I just stood there as her world unraveled in front of the people she most wanted to impress. No shouting, no courtroom, just truth, finally visible. Some inherit power, others reclaim it. And I walked in, erased, and left undeniable. The truth didn't need fireworks or vengeance. It only needed time. Time to rise. Time to reveal. And when it did, it stood taller than every lie they'd carefully arranged like centerpieces at her wedding. I didn't return to steal anything back. I returned to reclaim what was mine all along. My name, once erased, now echoes in every corner of that legacy. The sister who stood at the altar no longer stands untouchable. Her perfect image cracked, not from force, but from fact. That day wasn't just the end of a wedding. It was the unraveling of a false narrative and the beginning of something unshakable. Not revenge, not applause, but justice. Cold, silent, and complete. They thought I was gone, but the truth doesn't disappear. It waits, and when it's ready, it reclaims every inch they tried to bury. Life has a way of testing who you are when no one is watching. This story isn't just about family betrayal or legal victories. It's about choosing dignity over noise, strength over spectacle. In a world obsessed with proving things fast and loud, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is prepare in silence, act with precision, and let truth speak for itself. If you've ever been underestimated, pushed aside, or made to feel invisible, remember this: your power isn't lost. It's just waiting for the right moment to rise. Was there ever a moment you didn't say a word, but everyone finally saw the truth? Drop it in the comments. Your story could be the reminder someone else needs today. And if this story made something inside you shift, hit that subscribe button. Around here, we don't need to shout to be heard. We just need people like you who get it. One click might be small, but your support tells us these stories matter, and that keeps us going. Thanks for hearing what most chose to ignore. The truth needed someone to witness it, and that someone was you.